Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini episode, today I have another couple of bizarre stories. Very strange indeed this time, folks. One with these hooded figures, and another with this bizarre oily man. Let's get into the first article. Hooded manifestations at Bellis Knapp. Did a British family stumble into a procession of the otherworldly? Let's read on and find out. In 1998, a quiet family outing to the ancient burial site of Bellis Knapp in the Cotswolds turned into something out of legend. What began as a peaceful afternoon quickly shifted into unease when Paula Cobstake witnessed hooded pale figures that seemed to multiply and vanish before her eyes. Paula Cobstake, her husband Philip, and their 8-year-old son Edward were visiting the Neolithic site of Bellis Knapp in the Cotswolds, England, on a crisp, clear afternoon in February 1998, while Mr. Cobstake busied himself taking photographs of the forecourt area. Paula climbed to the top of the mound to take in the panoramic view and enjoy some solitude. However, she felt disappointed when she noticed a group of people approaching the site from the northwest across an adjacent field. At first glance, she saw about 5 figures, one smaller person in front and the others in 2 pairs walking quickly along the field boundary, which is part of the Cotswold Way. They faced forward and were all dressed alike in dark grayish-black clothing with pale, oval, translucent faces visible beneath pointed hoods. They were only a few hundred yards away. A brief distraction from her son caused her to look away, and when she turned back, she was startled to see even more figures emerging in the group. She told her husband that hundreds of people seemed to be coming and impatiently urged him to hurry because there appeared to be at least a dozen individuals walking purposefully towards them. The figures emerged from the dark shadows of overhanging evergreen trees and bushes along the boundary between 2 nearby fields. Now, it sounds like these entities could basically be part of some sort of cult because they maybe were wearing, black cultist-like robes, but they also sound like they could possibly be pale crawlers with the pale faces. At the very least, it's the feeling I get, folks. Then again, you don't hear too many stories of pale crawlers wearing clothes, so maybe they're actual gray aliens, perhaps? Maybe. Don't know, folks, but certainly an idea. But let's continue with the story. Each figure wore a hood, trailing the smaller person at the front. Paula assumed that the lead figure must have been a child of about 12, as he was about half the height of the others. She couldn't see any part of their bodies below the knees, leading her to think they were navigating through long, dead grass that obscured their lower limbs. They walked closely along the hedgerow in silence, never turning to their companions, yet all walked at a vigorous pace. To her surprise, they seemed to maintain the same position in the field, despite their rapid pace. It looked as though they were walking down a slope and back up again, almost as if they were going down into a ditch and climbing back up the other side. Annoyed by this intrusion, Paula took one last look at the figures and then deliberately turned her back, walking to the other end of the mound. Disturbingly, they appeared to be even further away than before. Although they were still moving purposely toward her, she then rejoined her son and husband, who had finished their activities. When Mr. Cobstake climbed up the mound to look, he was surprised to see no one at all. I'm not surprised, folks. Remember, she looked away and there were more figures there. Perhaps this was only in her mind, folks. Maybe these entities had put this idea that there were more there, or that they were even still there to begin with, in her mind. Perhaps they had already vanished or basically disappeared, and she was seeing something that had been basically placed within her mind. I don't know. I'm just saying it's an interesting idea of true, folks. Do you think that these entities were some sort of interdimensional interlopers, ultra-terrestrials who would be able to, control the mind of this person here, folks, and make her see things that just weren't there? I basically did this story before, folks, but I have a few more ideas about it. We'll talk a little more after we read the next article. Was it the oily man? A wedding night in Malaysia turns into a paranormal nightmare of true horror. Much like with this first story, folks, with these pale-faced, hooded figures, this oily man feels like them, like it could be an ultra-terrestrial encounter, so let's read on. What began as a joyous wedding celebration in rural Malaysia quickly spiraled into terror when a showery, oil-slicked figure with glowing red eyes appeared behind the toilet. Was this the infamous Oing maniac of legend, or something far darker that still haunts the night? In June 2008, I was in Pahang, Malaysia, celebrating my sister's wedding. All of my family and relatives were present To mark this special occasion, the band played traditional songs and kumpangs, creating a lively atmosphere. During the wedding night, once the ceremony known as sanding was over, there was more singing and feasting. The celebration took place in a grassy field not far from the groom's house. At one point, my mother asked me to accompany one of my aunts to the toilet. I had always admired this aunt. She was only 25 at the time, and she was tall and beautiful. I noticed that almost all of the guys, including the groom and me, couldn't help but glance at her, so I was happy to accompany her. But he wasn't about to be happy with what he was about to see, folks, both him and his aunt. Let's read on. In villages, the toilet is usually located at the back of the house and can be pretty scary at night. While my aunt was inside the toilet, I secretly took the opportunity to smoke and observe my surroundings. The location was far from the crowd, but I could still hear the faint sound of music. It was peaceful until I suddenly heard my aunt scream from inside the toilet, panicking. I thought she had seen me smoking and immediately threw the cigarette butt away, cursing myself for being careless and obviously afraid what his aunt was going to say and maybe talk to his mother as well. He was scared, but that was nothing to what he was about to see that would truly frighten him and what his aunt had already basically screamed in terror of. Let's continue with this man's story, folks, and hear about actually sighting the oily man. Let's get into the rest of this article now, folks. My aunt then rushed out of the toilet, her baju karong rolled up to her waist. What I saw behind the toilet was not a pretty sight. It looked like a man, but his entire body was black and shiny, as if covered in oil. It darted away strangely among the bushes, and in an instant it was gone from sight. Before it disappeared, I caught a glimpse of its face, which I will never forget. It had red eyes that stared directly at me because it took off. This figure was definitely not human, as no human could move like that. It reminded me of a spider, but with 2 legs. My aunt ran to me, breathless. I was scared too, but I tried to console her. We returned to the crowd, and I told my mother about the incident. She was also shocked, but one of the ladies from the groom's side who overheard our conversation said it was an orang minyak, or oily man. The orang minyak is a well-known ghost story, but what we encountered that night felt very real. Why? I have to say, I would have to agree with Y's statement. What he saw for him was real. Now, folks, I think I covered both stories in a previous video, but I want to go over them again with a little more information. Now, this orang minyak is a folkloric creature, so is it possible that this entire incident could have been maybe a Tulpa encounter, that somehow this creature jumped from myth and legend because these people believed in it, and somehow this caused this figure to basically manifest before the aunt here, as well as basically Y himself? Maybe. Either way, the same could be said with the previous creatures. But the fact here, folks, that these pale-faced, hooded figures, they really feel like we're talking about basically kind of regular people in costume here. But I can't be for sure. They really give me the feeling that we're looking at pale crawlers in weird robes. Or basically maybe, as I've said before in the last time I talked about this story, folks, that they're possibly gray aliens. Now, it's been stated before, folks, that gray aliens will occasionally be seen wearing clothing, usually something you'd basically see from a 1950s movie with basically these capes and basically huge collars. But this time, folks, these entities were dressed like cultists from some sort of, well, satanic movie, right? So that's what I'm finding very strange here, folks. And this oily man, as I said, folks, it has sort of a similar vibe here of this weird entity, but it's definitely from folklore, at least from Malaysia, folks, right? Well, these hooded entities, folks, they came from England, right? So, naturally, in England, folks, people have basically, stories of witches, people basically committing, horrific acts as part of some sort of satanic cult, which is part of the mythology of England, folks. So that seems to track. So do you think that these entities are, interdimensional interlopers or tulpas? Maybe it's the same thing. Either way, we're at the end. So please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics They're Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure you hit the part of the bell that'll give you all future notifications. And please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video. So be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.